you a home grower looking for a little bit of help? Are you ready to learn as much as you can about your favorite hobby? The Homegrown Helpers brings you informative interviews from experienced growers that have taken the next steps in their journey and decided to help you grow top quality cannabis all in your home. Now welcome in our host, Rob Smith, along with this week's Homegrown Helper. And welcome to the show, everyone. Are you ready for this week's grow tips and tricks from another Homegrown Helper? Yes, me too. What an amazing interview I have for you today. Kyle joins me as another grower from Massachusetts. While he's not typically for hire as a home grow consultant right now, I thought this interview gave a different insight from someone who has shifted into a new role, trying to help brands and products reach their full potential, while still delivering some great growing content for you guys. And this will be the last episode we publish before prices for GrowPass go up on September 1st. Right now, prices are $9.95 and $19.95 for our two levels, but we'll be bumping up to $14.95 and $29.95 respectively. But if you get in before September 1st, you'll be locked in for life at this low level. Take advantage of up to 25% off a bunch of amazing partner products, more exclusive audios from the GrowPass team, and maximize your entries into our 5K quarterly giveaway full of grow gear that's sure to elevate your grow. Head on over to mygrowpass.com and sign up today before you miss out on the low prices and all the benefits for another month. Our GrowPass partners for today's show are Cultilux, manufacturers of the leading ceramic metal halide fixture and bulb, and Fishhead Farms with their product Fish It, a microbial ecosystem in a bottle. Become a member and gain access to a 25% discount code for both of those products. Oh, and one more thing before we get to the interview. Ratings and reviews. We need them, and you can give them. We really appreciate it when you do. Next week, I'm going to start reading some of them on air. Get yours in today, and I might just read yours. I almost forgot. For the month of September, we're going to be doing weekly giveaways from some of our GrowPass partners. Follow us and GrowCast on Instagram so you don't miss out on the details. Now, let's welcome in this week's Homegrown Helper, Kyle.
Hey, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Kyle, why don't you introduce yourself, your name, your company name, and where you're from to start things off?
So my name is Kyle Hamilton. I'm from the Massachusetts kind of Metro West area. And my company name is I'm on Fire. And I want to set you on fire too. It's not as ominous as it sounds. And I'm basically more of a product consultant these days. However, I do quite a bit still for home grow consulting. I like to stay local, preferably, because I'm a big believer that everybody's environment is very different for what everybody needs for their end results. And depending on what they need it's a long conversation of what they need before they start growing. And I like to be personal, and I like to get up front and meet my clients and view their grows and, make it like a This Old House kind of episode where I come in and figure this stuff out for them.
Great. So how long have you been personally growing cannabis?
I've been growing mostly on, but off and on for about 10 years now, in closets, in like little holes in the wall, in little creeks and beds, outdoors, in places that I'm perfectly legally allowed to, and as well as in my own home in the past.
Great. And what made you decide to take the leap into helping other people learn how to grow?
Necessity. Really, I started growing myself, and I just, I talk a lot. Once I start talking, it's hard to get me to stop. So I've had friends just say, hey, Kyle, I've been thinking about doing this. Great. And then I start going and talking to them. And then I realize just how much time I'm spending over there. And then friends say they'll pay me for my time. And it just kind of grew into stuff from there.
Great. So why don't you tell me about your current grow setup, the size of the room, the type of medium, type of grow setup, the number of plants that you're rocking. Give me the rundown there.
Sure. So I have a few relatively small ones because the space that I live in, I'm not allowed to grow in my home. Apartment living, part of the problem. But I've got another space that I do this. I have a 3x3 grow tent for my primary indoor flowering. Right now, it's got a few plants in there because I'm doing a pheno hunt, and that means I have to grow a bunch of different, from seed, a bunch of the exact same plant, and then kind of choose the winner of those. Whoever looks the best, has the best flowers, something rare or something neat as far as medication for myself and my wife. I also have an outdoor grow right now going on that's got all organic soil and inputs. Nothing but granular stuff that I put together for an outdoor that and that's just a few plants, but they're quite big. They're almost 5 feet tall right now, so I expect them to be much larger. But they're all in living soil, given tons of insect frass and lots of all the organic goodies. I put a ton of I use the company Fish Shit a lot for all my organic inputs because it's a great organic mycorrhizae and terpene enhancer. And for my indoor, I'm in a couple different mixes. I like to experiment. So right now I'm playing with a entirely cocoa grow that's got using a auto pot setup in it. So that way I'm using psycho and Buddhist tree nutrients, so synthetics for that guy almost entirely. And I'm running that through the auto pot. But in the 3x3, I've got Pro Mix, so it's technically a soilless substrate, but it's like in between soil and soilless is how I like to view Pro Mix HP. And I am using, drain to waste methods there. So that's all just watering in, psycho and Buddhist tree nutrients, as well as a lot of organic inputs on the off/flush days to kind of get my CalMag as well as, my mycorrhizae and enzymes and stuff in there. I'm growing under LEDs primarily whenever I grow indoors. I prefer to grow under LEDs, not just because in the past I've worked at an LED company, but because, wow, you can save a lot of power with them and still get phenomenal, like truly craft results. So I grow with Bloom Boss LEDs right now, which is a defunct company that I used to work for. They are now bankrupt, although I'm pretty sure you can probably find them still online. And I have grown with a lot of different stuff in the past, but my personal grow is all LEDs or outdoors.
Great. That's a great rundown. And you actually mentioned two of our GrowPass partner members here. Fish Shit Farms, where you can use the code GrowCast at their website, Fishhead Farms, I believe.
Yeah, great guys.
Save 10% off. And Buddha's Tree, which we partnered with through Greencraft Distribution.
Oh, great.
So you can Google Greencraft Distribution, head on over to their website, use the code GrowCast, and you can save 10% off the entire product line at Greencraft Distribution. So perfect there, Kyle. Thank you very much.
Of course. Greencraft Distribution and Fish Shit are both fantastic local companies that have done a lot for this community, and I've met them all many times. They're great people.
Yes, they are. That's why we partnered with them. So, Kyle, you got a new grower who is struggling in the grow room. What would be your advice on one thing or a few things to look at for this grower when they're concerned with overall plant health?
So the first thing I would do, besides looking at it and seeing if it's something that I can recognize right away, would be to ask them a lot about what they're doing for inputs, how much water they're giving their plants, all the kind of like general basics of their temperature and humidity in that room. And if they don't have that information, that already tells me a lot. Growers need to, especially for home growers who really care about their final product, need to keep records and track of everything. So if you fed your plants, 6 milliliters per gallon of this one nutrient, write it down on a little calendar of that day that you gave this nutrient on that day to these plants. What was the temperature of the water? What was the pH? What was the ppm? And those are the information that's going to be really important, because then when you do have problems like this struggling grower does, you'll be able to look back and go, oh, I got this nutrient burn because I upped my nutrients here at the last watering. Or, oh, this happened or that happened. And if they're still not sure, then, it takes some more investigating. But that's normally where I like to start.
We are big fans and hear it time and time again on our interviews. So if you haven't heeded the advice of our experienced growers yet, guys, get yourself a grow journal, get yourself a little notebook, track your inputs, track your results. And we almost insist with people that reach out to work with one of our consultants or just ask for some advice. We want pictures, take daily or every other day pictures so we can kind of see the progression if a problem persists. And then we can match it up with the things that you've tried to go along with those pictures and see the progression. And that's really going to help you figure out what the actual problem is.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad to hear that a lot of other people have said that. Not enough people write down what they're doing. And I know it's one more task after you've already been working for, an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 in your grow area, depending on the size of it. And the last thing you want to do is sit there and write, do a write-up. The least favorite part of anyone's job is the paperwork, but it's the most important.
Yeah, and quick notes and pictures. Pictures take seconds to be able to snap off.
Absolutely.
And if that can go along with a simple journal with a date to match up, it helps everybody in the process.
Yeah. It also, with the pictures, will help people understand that, whether they're actually doing something or not. I've had plenty of growers I've advised in the past to say, do the technique of lollipopping, which is getting rid of, everything below like the top couple nodes on each stem. And I've told people to do this. And they said, all right, Kyle, I did it. And then I go back and look, I'm like, you left like the top foot of canopy. That's not lollipopping. I'm sorry, my friend, you need to do it this way. And it's, I'm not sure, that looks like too much to take off. That's what lollipopping is. That's why I'm telling you to do it.
We have a regular on GrowCast, Wolfman, and any regular listener of GrowCast is more than familiar with Wolfman. He calls it shaving the legs, which I have adopted and really like.
I do that too, especially when after I've done lollipopping and it starts growing back. That's really what it feels like.
Right.
It really does.
So, Kyle, in your opinion, what is the single highest leverage move a grower can do in order to increase the yield they achieve off of a single plant?
Okay. So this is going to be a relatively complicated answer, but it mostly has to do with light. Light is the input for your plants for food. A lot of people say it's the nutrients, but kinda, not really. It's more of a supplement. The main source of power for your plants is the light. So investing in a good grow light is an extremely important step. So I see a lot of people say I'm not getting great yields and I can't figure out why. And it's because they have a $32 LED they got off of Amazon with some name that I've never heard of as a company. And maybe they're a good company, but for something that cheap, it's probably not going to be the best grow light. And it doesn't mean you can't get great effects. You also then have to learn to watch your plants grow. So there's a term called photomorphogenesis, which is basically means, how plants grow in response to light. And photomorphogenesis is my bread and butter that I tell everybody. So if you've got an LED light with lots of, blue and red and kind of like the Bloom Boss one that I have, if you keep that too close to your plants, they start stacking nodes very heavily. And while that might be useful, say later in flowering, that's really going to be a problem early in veg. It's just going to basically dwarf my plants and keep them really small. And I'm not going to get great yields. When you want big yields, you kind of need relatively bigger plants. So I like to tell people that, if you're starting to notice that your plant is growing in really stacked really early, raise your grow light. Make it harder so that the plant's not getting quite as much light, or into the spectrum if you can, in a way that will make it grow a little bit more leggy. And then you can let it stack again, when it gets closer to flowering, etc. So I tell people it's their light as well as learning how to use their light, in response to how the plants react. And that's definitely the hardest step for newbies to get into, and why they, will send you a picture every day saying, I see this one leaf, it's slightly doing this. What does this mean? And, it might not mean anything. It might be saying, keep going, keep doing the same thing. So I understand it's very difficult and takes a certain number of reps to recognize how a plant will respond, but you'll get there. And, that's what people like me and all the other consultants are there for, is to look at your plants, like you said, with the pictures and say, okay, you need to raise your light, lower your light, etc.
So can you talk a little bit about the balance between the first topic, the shaving the legs, the lollipopping, as well as having a taller plant or a bigger plant in order to achieve that yield? Because if we're shaving the legs, then we're removing a lot of that growth that grew up. Do you think that if you kept that shorter, fully stacked plant, you would be able to accomplish the same yields if you didn't lollipop or trim up the bottom?
It kind of depends on your grow style. People need to pick a style of how they're growing and kind of stick to it. Because if they're trying to grow if they've got the space for, a plant to grow out wide and tall, then they can let it do that to get some nice big yields. But of course, there's, micro grow setups or systems, or maybe their light doesn't have great penetration of their canopy. And that's when lollipopping would become really important. So if you have a light that's got, a bunch of, like an LED with 120 degree secondary lenses over it, is really going to spread the light out wide, and it's not going to be pushing it down below your canopy the same way like a cob light or, something with 90 degree lenses might. So it kind of depends on your setup. I've done micro grows in a 2 foot by 1 foot by 2 foot setup that I've told the customer that they keep training their plants down low. And then we did this one technique that was created by, I want to say his name is Light Addict 420 or something on Instagram. And it's basically a lollipopping, except for you keep stapling down as you go. And it's not the fastest way of growing plants, but if you have a very tight space and you need to keep everything low to the ground, you can absolutely get monstrous yields using his techniques. It just really depends on how you need to grow it, and also what that phenotype is going to do. Because like if you have a sativa and you don't have a ceiling, you're not going to be in for a good time. But if you've got an indica and you got a low ceiling, that might be just fine. You might still yield a monstrous amount of flowers.
So I'm a big plant energy guy, and I wish there were more studies about the amount of energy that a plant spends getting nutrients up from the soil up to the bud sites on, if you have a 4 foot tall plant, but only have, nodes and buds growing on the top foot of it because of your light penetration, that's 3 feet of space that plant is working to bring those nutrients up from the soil.
Absolutely.
I haven't seen an awful lot of information on that, but I do believe that, there's wasted energy there, and during flower, obviously, we want that plant to just be focusing on growing those buds as big and beautiful as possible.
Absolutely. So, right.
Taking into consideration, there is, like you said, a balance for everybody's grow setup, the height of the ceilings, the width of the plants that they can achieve. And like in your situation, a 3x3 grow tent, trying to get that right pheno out of there, you obviously aren't growing super wide plants. But if you only had one plant in there, you can grow that to a 3x3 space and really max out the yield off that one plant.
Exactly. Of course, there isn't a lot of these studies because, cannabis has been illegal for a long time. However, I've been privy to a couple interesting conversations. When I worked for Bloom Boss, we were talking and working with the University of Guelph, Ontario. Guelph, that area is one of the few places in the world that still continued to study cannabis. Like after the United States pretty much banned it everywhere. It was them and Israel. And they do things like put plants in grow chambers and try to recreate the exact environment that plant came from. So if it's like a Hindu Kush, they try to make it like, the mountain range area, and to see how the plants respond. So a lot of times people can learn what to expect based off of the genetics and the lineage. So if they see if they're growing like, say, a landrace of Acapulco Gold, yeah, it's going to be stretchy. It's going to get into these big, crazy, wild plants. And maybe the breeder can give them some recommendations of saying, all right, it's 3 inches tall, flip it to flower, or maybe they'll say, wait, till it's at least 2 or 3 feet tall before you want to do that. But from my experience with taller, lankier plants that are just, like you said, like, how you get the nutrients from the soil all the way up there to the bud site, I find lankier plants, I end up foliar feeding more. And I don't have the science to back it up, but the thought occurred to me when I learned about sequoia trees, and that sequoia trees, once they get to a certain height, really don't take up a lot of water from their roots anymore. And they mostly get it from the air because they're just too dang big, and it takes way too much energy to send water up, 400 feet of tree.
Totally. So, that's a great example. I'll look into that.
Exactly. I had learned about that because I grow a couple sequoias personally. They're still small. They're only a couple feet tall. But I thought about that, and that's kind of how I've been treating plants. So I had, I grew some prayer tower, and that thing is very sativa, and that thing absolutely responded great when I gave it a lot of foliar feeding as it got bigger. I know it could have been a lot of different things, and I'm only going off of my own experience, so I don't want to draw any conclusions for your listeners, but generally seems to work out okay for me.
We just did a great interview with Ned Frost. We actually just dropped it just a couple of days ago at the time of this recording. and he gives a great foliar feeding recipe. So I think we're really distilling down some really great information for our audience and showing the similarities that really experienced growers have. So foliar feeding and the tracking are two that have come up so far on this interview, and I'm sure we're going to get into more right after this break for our sponsors. Hey guys, we are going to take a quick break to thank our MyGrowPass.com sponsors. First up, we have Cultilux. Cultilux is a leading supplier in the industry dedicated to providing professional-grade lamps and fixtures. See, plants require a variety of specific needs to grow to their full potential. They've managed to design a lighting source that will deliver exactly what the plants need while eliminating lighting that the plant does not need. With their industry-leading 315, 630, and brand new 1,000-watt double-ended CMH bulb, Cultilux has the right fixture and bulb for your needs. Grab them today at cultilux.com. That's CULTILUX.com. And use code GrowCast10. That's GrowCast10 to save 10% off all your orders. Or you can save a killer 25% on all those products after you become a member at mygrowpass.com. That's Cultilux, CULTILUX.com. Also, we have to thank Fish Head Farms and their product, Fish It. Fish It is a full-spectrum microbial product, an ecosystem in a bottle. It can be used from seedling all the way through flush with a ecosystem of microbes working to make nutrients more bioavailable. Use Fish It in flower, veg, or all the way through flush to break down those salts in those last couple of weeks. Their beneficial microbes aid in bud development, overall yield, terpene production, aroma, and taste. Grab your Fish It at fishheadfarms.com and use code GROWCAST at checkout to save 10%, while our GrowPass members save 25% on every order. Now, this is something that you're going to use with every feeding. So this is definitely a product that you can benefit from saving by a 25% after you become a member of mygrowpass.com. Thank you to our sponsors, Cultilux and Fish It. So Kyle, let's talk about IPM, Integrated Pest Management, in an indoor garden. What are your go-to products or items to keep your gardens and your plants clean and healthy?
So this is going to sound a little cheesy, but the number one way of reducing risk is mindfulness, is keeping an idea of what you're doing. Say you like to go for long walks and you go out into, the outdoors, or you have a bunch of pets like dogs that you take outside a lot in your house. Well, guess what? You probably have a couple bugs coming back with you. So certain places that I visit, whenever I come home, I walk in my front door and I strip down all my clothes immediately. And I've got a laundry basket right by the door that I throw all that stuff in. And especially if I'm really worried, say like I visited a hydroponic store. Hydroponic stores get a lot of visits from a lot of growers, which makes them a great breeding ground for bugs and pathogens. So anytime I come back from any hydro store, no matter which one it is, I take a shower. If I'm going to be touching my plants, at least, it's just kind of a good general rule to keep, is that you need to realize where you're going and what you're doing. Maybe don't wear the same shirt that you've been wearing outdoors all day into your indoor grow. Or if you're in a place that has a problem, like you've got some room that's got, a mild mold issue, great. When you go to the next room, you need to change. That's the number one thing I see wrong, is that people don't take the care, or they don't realize, oh, shoot, I did this. But as far as control stuff that I use, I'm a big fan of insects. I think ladybugs and praying mantises and a bunch of flying lacewings, they work phenomenal for pest control. But it's how you apply them. A lot of people kind of assume that you can take any kind of pest control and you can throw it at your plants and it's all fine. And most growers will probably at least have heard that, maybe don't spray down your flowering plants with pesticides, and they'll be warned about certain things not to dunk their plants in or do. But they're not always told the right steps to do with anything that's supposed to be clean. So ladybugs, for example, when you buy them from a store and they're live and running around, they are hungry. But they also do things in steps. Because if you release all the bugs at once into your grow area, they're going to eat some of the bugs, and then they're going to go breed, and they're going to ignore the rest of them. Ladybugs are kind of like us. They're kind of like farmers, and that like they'll leave a certain amount of the population alive so that then their kids and their little larvae have something to eat as well. So what I always recommend for ladybugs is release them over 3 days, and preferably at night or when your lights are off. So that way they don't just fly into the heat of the light and then get fried by your fans or whatever. But you can release them at night, and I put about a third of them out. And then the next night I put another third, and then the next night I put another third. And what this does is I'm getting waves of these hungry ladybugs to come in voracious to start eating, if I have like aphids or something like that. So they act in waves, and then they start, because the first round that I released, they ate that first night, and now they're breeding the second night. And the third day, they're laying eggs, and then they might go out again. Any of their eggs that hatch they're especially voracious, and they're going to start eating too. So if you do it in cycles and plan accordingly, you can get some really, really fantastic results. But if you just throw ladybugs at it, you might find most of them just in the fan of your LED.
So a couple of really good points there, Kyle. Thank you for that. Back to the mindfulness aspect, I like to say that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to ask you, do you have a particular pair of shoes that you wear into your grow room?
Actually, no. I take off my shoes into my grow room, at least for my tents, because they're small enough that I don't have to go stepping on anything. Mm-hmm. However, in the past, when I've worked in some much larger rooms, like a 20 by 20 foot area, yeah, I absolutely had a specific change of clothes specifically for that spot. It wasn't just shoes. It was pants, it was gloves, it was shirts. And after every time I worked in it, I threw them all right into the washer.
Yeah, I did a lot of the same type of stuff. I had the dirtiest pair of Crocs, but I knew that they were dirty only from grow room dirt.
Right.
There wasn't anything else on there because it was only, they were kept outside of the door to my grow rooms, and I would actually kick off my outdoor, or I would shower the same way. So if I had to wear something out in the garage, I would kick those off at the bottom of the stairs and then walk barefoot up to the top of the stairs and slip on my grow room shoes. Nice. To be clean as possible walking in there. The other thing, and it just slipped my mind.
The ladybugs?
Yes. So the ladybugs, most of the insects that we're going after in our grow rooms have a very short life cycle and can reproduce, and those eggs will hatch into larvae and turn into bugs in just a very short few days. Mm-hmm. So staggering them is a very great approach, so that when, a spider mite lays an egg, in a day or two, it's a full-blown spider mite. Those fresh ladybugs will come in, and getting those bugs before they get a chance to reproduce is really key to stopping any infestation.
Absolutely.
So I like that staggering approach.
Yeah. And it's also key is when to release them is, little things to avoid. I hear a lot of growers say that the reason that they don't like using ladybugs is they say, oh, well, then the bugs are just going to poop all over my flowers. And I'm going to find like chopped up ladybug parts all over the buds. And I always ask them, when the heck are you releasing these things? What are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your ladybugs that you're getting them to have poop all over your flowering plants? And the answer is normally because they put their plants into flowering while they still have pests. If you still have a big mite problem or something that's really stressing out the plants, don't put them into flowering if you can avoid it, because you're going to get worse results anyway. So there's little things that I always just kind of question of the reasoning as to when people say, oh, no, don't use this or use this product. It's normally because of how they use it. It might not be the right way that they did it,
I would also add 2 points of argument there.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather have the bug poop, the spider mite residue on your plants, or the ladybug poop?
Right.
And what do you think happens to all these plants that are outside? There are little bits of everything on there, ladybug poop or whatever, but as long as it's clean growing, those little bits are really not going to cause you that much angst in the long run.
Yeah, you kind of just gave me a flashback just now to one of the outdoor grows I did last summer. I had this one beautiful, huge primary cola. It was definitely the one the plant was putting the most energy into. on this one big outdoor strain, and I was so proud of it. And I was thinking that when this thing comes down, that's the picture, you post to Instagram, like, look at this cola, and and then a bird pooped all over it. And like, it was just it wasn't just like a little bird poop. It was like deliberately attacking that one cola, I swear. There was just so much. And I was so sad, and I ended up having to cut it out and just get rid of it, because I didn't go back to that grow for long enough that it wasn't like fresh poop I could wash off. It had been there for a couple days before I saw it. And it was not good.
Gross.
Yeah.
So Kyle, what kind of character traits or characteristics are most important for a grower to succeed?
This is actually the one I struggled the hardest with myself, is that you got to stick to a plan. You really do. And that's the only way that you're going to learn anything. I see a lot of growers who get like free samples from a hydro store and immediately just start throwing it into their regimen, as if that's going to give them any basis to really judge it, Because like, if you are using this one mycorrhizae product and then you just get a wee little bottle and you try to just throw it in there with the rest of it, you're not learning anything. You're using the other stuff too. You might see some better results, but it might be very subjective. So I tell people that the biggest thing that you really have to do to be successful, especially early on as you get going, is make a plan and stick to it. If you're going to go, all organics, and you're going to use this one line of nutrients, use that line of nutrients throughout the whole grow and finish it before you say, I don't like it, I'm going to move on to some different nutrients.
Great.
That honestly is the biggest thing for me.
Yep.
So
great words of advice. So as we wrap up our initial interview here, Kyle, I'd like to thank you for your time today, and remind our audience that we do have some bonus content that comes at you just on our website, thehomegrownhelpers.com/bonus or bonus content. And all you have to do is hand over your favorite email address, and you get to download or listen to the bonus content from all of our growers. We keep them around for an extra 5 questions. And if you've been listening for a while, we actually switch things up here a little bit and ask some different questions in this interview. And we proceed with some different questions in our bonus content. So head on over and download that from Kyle and all of our other growers today. So as we wrap things up here, Kyle, any last bits of wisdom that you'd like to give to every grower listening right now?
I would say always keep your mind really open. And again, this is kind of generic advice I see a lot from people, but it seems to be rarely used. There are a lot of old hats who say to me like, oh, I already know this. I already know how to do that. I've been growing for 20 years. Well, guess what? Technology marches on. There's new stuff. They might eventually come up with some form of, neem oil that isn't systemic, or, they might come up with this issue or this thing that does something better than before. Old school methods aren't necessarily better than new school ones, depending on your environment. So always be open to learn something new. And, you can try new products, despite the fact that I just warned you about, trying new products, but you need to do it in an intelligent way. If you think there might be a better option out there, try it and give it an honest try, because you'd be surprised. When I was selling LEDs, I can't tell you, it was early enough on for LED sales that everywhere I went, I would run into at least one person who say, LEDs don't yield. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. When was the last time you tried one? Oh, 5 years ago. Well, times are different. So keep your mind open and always be aware that, now that a ton of money is really pouring into the cannabis industry as legalization approaches, it's just going to be wilder and wilder. There's going to be new products that do things that we used to dream of in the past. I've seen dehydrators that have promised that they can cut down your dry time from 14 days to a few hours. And it's wild. And it seems not that bad, but it's not for everybody. Keep your mind open. That's it.
Great. So last thing that we have for you, Kyle, where can our audience learn more from you, find you, connect, and what are all the other things that you have going on?
So you can find me on my official work Instagram is just getting started now. It's I'm on Fire CC, which you can say stands for cannabis consulting, or CBD consulting, or whatever the heck you want CC to stand for. Um, and I'll also, my personal one is, hey, look, I'm on fire, where I can always, talk to you, and I show pictures of a lot of my own personal grows so people can kind of get an idea of what I'm doing and what I'm thinking about different products. I'm currently working on a website, but you can also always contact me at one of, I'll give you this email. It's, hey, look, I'm on fire. Kind of goes with everything else. And it's going to be, just reach out to me and talk. I'm not currently accepting new clients for Grow at the moment, but I'm always open to talking. And, if you just have a quick question or want advice, I mean, you'd be surprised. I've gotten single sentence questions that I've sent back like 3 pages of how to use this thing properly because you caught me at a moment of passion and I wanted to tell you about it.
Great. So that email was, hey, look, I'm on fire at...
Oh, gmail.com. I'm sorry, I didn't say that.
No.
So at gmail.com. And you can find me there, and I'm willing to talk all kinds of things for cannabis, for products, and make recommendations. I'm happy to do that for anything that people generally just want to know about. My other stuff that you said I should mention, I also am a salesman. I do a little bit of work for this one company that I believe in. It makes a great product. Rain Science Grow Bags. I sell some of their products in a bunch of different stores throughout New England. And I also do specifically product consultation. So someone they want someone to vet products for their stores, or if they want people to try out and do QA and, quality control, all this stuff for people, I do that too. So a company can call me in, I can review all their products, and if they're really good ones, then I'd be happy to recommend them to all the different other resellers and clients that I have. I just like connecting people.
Great. So thank you again for your time today, Kyle. But don't hang up just yet because we're going to keep you around for those last 5 bonus questions.
Right on.
And audience, don't forget about heading over to thehomegrownhelpers.com/bonus to gain access to the next 5 questions that we're going to keep Kyle around for. And if you are looking for a consultant, don't forget to email me, rob@thehomegrownhelpers.com. And thank you again to our sponsors for the show. You can find them at mygrowpass.com. All the discounts are listed right there for our listeners and our members, which gets you typically from a 10% discount up to a 25% discount for most of the products that we have listed there. So that's all for us today, folks. Happy growing and keep it real.